From uncertainty to achievement, my journey of discipline, resilience, learning, risk-taking, building networks, embracing opportunities, overcoming doubt, maintaining balance, and paying it forward to become truly successful. The beginning without confidence. I was not born successful, and there was nothing in my early years that suggested I would become someone people admired. I grew up in a small, where big dreams often sounded unrealistic and even foolish. Every day felt predictable: school, home, homework, sleep, and repeat. I watched others shine while I quietly stood in the background, afraid to speak too loudly about what I truly wanted. Deep inside, however, there was a restless voice that refused to disappear. It whispered that my life could be different, that I was capable of more than the limits placed around me. At first I ignored that voice, because doubt was louder. Doubt told me I was too ordinary, too inexperienced, too late to start anything meaningful. I compared myself to people who already seemed ahead, and each comparison felt like proof that success belonged to someone else, not me. But one evening, while sitting alone and thinking about my future, I realized something important. Nobody was coming to change my life for me, no miracle, no sudden opportunity, no rescue. If I wanted success, I would have to build it with my own hands, even if those hands were shaking. That realization was both terrifying and empowering. I did not suddenly become confident or fearless, but I made a quiet decision. I would stop waiting, I would start learning, trying, failing, and improving. Even if progress was slow and invisible to everyone else. That night became the true beginning of my journey, not because everything changed instantly, but because I changed my mindset. I understood that success is not a gift, it is a process, and every process begins with a choice. My choice was simple: I would no longer allow fear to control my direction, even if I did not yet know the exact path ahead. I only knew that staying the same would hurt more than trying and failing, and for the first time, that thought gave me a strange sense of courage. Learning to fail without quitting. After making the decision to change my life, I expected quick results. I thought that determination alone would open doors, but reality was far less romantic. My first attempts were clumsy and uncertain. I tried new skills, applied for opportunities, and shared my ideas with people who did not always believe in them. Rejection arrived faster than progress, and each no felt heavier than the last. There were days when I questioned everything, wondering if I had misunderstood my own potential. Failure became a frequent visitor. Projects did not work out, plans collapsed, and sometimes I embarrassed myself by aiming too high without enough preparation. At first, every mistake felt personal, as if it confirmed the doubts I had carried for years. I wanted to retreat to my old comfortable routine, where expectations were low and disappointment was rare. But something inside me had shifted. I remembered the promise I made to myself: I would not allow fear to control my direction. So instead of quitting, I started analyzing. I asked myself what went wrong, what I could improve, and what skills I still lacked. Slowly I began to see failure differently. It was not a verdict, it was feedback. Each setback carried a lesson, sometimes about discipline, sometimes about patience, sometimes about humility. I realized that successful people were not those who avoided mistakes, but those who survived them, adapted, and continued forward. This understanding did not remove the pain of disappointment, but it gave it meaning, and meaning made it easier to endure. I built small habits: waking up earlier, studying longer, practicing even when I did not feel motivated. Progress was still slow, almost invisible, but I could feel myself becoming stronger inside, less fragile, more focused. I was no longer chasing instant success, I was building resilience. And resilience quietly became my greatest advantage, even before any visible achievement appeared. Discipline over motivation. As weeks turned into months, I began to understand that motivation is unreliable. Some mornings I woke up energized and ready to conquer the world, but on many others I felt tired, doubtful, and tempted to postpone my efforts. If I depended only on inspiration, I would move forward one day and fall back the next. So I chose something stronger: discipline. Discipline was not exciting. It did not feel heroic or dramatic. It was quiet and repetitive. It meant working even when nobody noticed, practicing even when improvement was barely visible, and continuing even when results were delayed. I created routines and followed them strictly. I set clear goals and broke them into small, manageable steps. Instead of dreaming about success, I scheduled it into my day, hour by hour, task by task. At first this structure felt restrictive, but soon I realized it was freeing, because it removed the constant negotiation with myself about whether I should work or rest. The decision was already made, I simply followed through. There were still distractions: social media, invitations, moments of laziness, but I learned to protect my time like something valuable, because it was. Every completed task strengthened my confidence a little more, not because it brought immediate recognition, but because it proved that I could rely on myself, and that trust was powerful. I no longer waited to feel ready, I acted despite uncertainty, and surprisingly, action often created the motivation I had been waiting for. Slowly, my skills improved, my knowledge deepened, and my mindset became sharper. People around me started noticing small changes, my focus, my consistency, my determination, but they did not see the countless quiet hours behind them. I began to understand that success is less about talent and more about showing up repeatedly, especially on the days when it is hardest. Discipline became the bridge between my dreams and reality, and with every step across it, I moved closer to the future I once thought was impossible. Facing fear of visibility, as my discipline strengthened and my skills improved, a new challenge appeared. It was no longer about learning in silence, it was about stepping into visibility. For a long time I had worked quietly, safe from judgment because few people noticed my efforts, but real growth required me to share my work, express my ideas openly, and risk criticism. This frightened me more than failure ever had, because visibility meant vulnerability. It meant allowing others to evaluate something that carried pieces of my identity. The first time I presented my project publicly, my voice trembled and my hands felt cold. I was certain that everyone could see my insecurity, and I expected harsh judgment at any moment. Some feedback was supportive, some was indifferent, and some was critical, yet none of it destroyed me. Instead, it revealed an important truth. Most people are too focused on their own lives to analyze mine as deeply as I feared. That realization was liberating. I began to understand that the fear of embarrassment had been exaggerated by my imagination, not by reality, so I kept showing up, again and again, each time a little more confident. I learned to separate my self-worth from my results. Criticism became information rather than an attack, and praise became encouragement rather than validation I depended on. With every step into the spotlight, my comfort zone expanded, opportunities started appearing more frequently, collaborations, invitations, conversations with people who once seemed far beyond my reach. None of this happened because I suddenly became fearless, it happened because I acted despite fear. I accepted that growth and discomfort are inseparable, and that hiding would guarantee stagnation. While visibility exposed my weaknesses, it also revealed my strengths I had underestimated for years. By choosing to be seen, I allowed the world to respond to my effort, and that response, both positive and challenging, accelerated my progress more than silent preparation ever could. Building a network of mentors. As I stepped into visibility and began sharing my work, I realized that no one succeeds entirely alone. Even the most talented people need guidance, perspective, and support. I started seeking mentors, people who had achieved what I wanted, who could offer advice, constructive criticism, and encouragement. At first, reaching out was intimidating. I worried I would be rejected, judged as inexperienced, or seen as annoying, but I reminded myself that the worst outcome was simply no, and no still left me where I started. So I sent messages, attended events, asked questions, and gradually doors began to open. Some mentors responded immediately, some reluctantly, some ignored me at first, but I learned to respect their time and listen carefully to those who did engage. I discovered that mentorship is a two-way street. I offered help in return, shared my perspective, and showed commitment to my own growth. This combination of humility and persistence attracted guidance from unexpected places. As I learned from these mentors, my understanding of success shifted. I realized that talent is rarely enough, strategy matters, timing matters, and knowing the right people can accelerate progress. But equally important was learning how to absorb advice without losing my own direction. Not every suggestion fit my path, and part of growth was discerning which guidance would serve my goals. My network of mentors became a living resource, a web of experience, encouragement, and accountability. Each interaction revealed not only technical knowledge but also how successful people think, how they handle failure, and how they manage pressure. This insight helped me avoid mistakes I might have made alone and gave me confidence to make bold decisions. I understood that seeking help is not weakness, it is a shortcut to wisdom, and the courage to ask for guidance became as valuable as the skills I was developing through practice and discipline. Learning the value of patience. As I continued to grow, I discovered one of the hardest lessons: success does not happen overnight. The habits I built, the mentors I found, the projects I completed, all of these contributed slowly, imperceptibly, toward results that would only appear months or years later. Early in my journey, I had been impatient, frustrated when progress seemed invisible. I wanted recognition, validation, and measurable outcomes immediately. But life had other plans. I realized that rushing or forcing results often led to mistakes, poor decisions, and unnecessary stress. Patience became a skill I had to practice deliberately. I learned to appreciate the process itself, to find meaning in the small improvements and repeated efforts. Each completed task, each new skill, each failure analyzed, was a step forward. Even when it didn't feel like one, I started measuring progress in terms of growth, not accolades, in terms of consistency, not instant triumph. This shift in perspective eased the pressure and allowed me to focus more deeply on improving. I also learned that opportunities often arrive at unexpected times, that persistence attracts timing and chance, and that waiting with preparation is far more effective than rushing without it. Patience did not make me passive, it made me strategic. I learned to invest energy wisely, to plant seeds and nurture them, rather than expecting them to bloom the moment they hit the soil. Over time, I began to notice compounding effects. Small efforts multiplied, relationships deepened, skills solidified, and projects I started months or years ago finally began showing results. The experience taught me humility and endurance. I understood that enduring patience is not about passivity, it is about steady, deliberate action combined with trust in the process, and with each passing month, I felt more confident that the foundation I was building was strong enough to support real, lasting success. Overcoming self-doubt. Even with discipline, mentors, and patience, self-doubt remained a constant companion. It whispered that I wasn't capable enough, that my efforts were insignificant, that someone else would always be better. There were moments when I questioned why I even tried. When the fear of failure felt heavier than the desire to succeed, I realized that self-doubt is not eliminated by accomplishments alone. It must be faced, understood, and managed. I began observing my thoughts carefully, noticing patterns of negative self-talk. I asked myself whether these doubts were based on facts or assumptions, whether they were warnings or excuses. This awareness was the first step toward controlling them. I started replacing critical thoughts with questions: what can I learn? What action can I take? Instead of, I can't do this, I also kept a record of past achievements, no matter how small, to remind myself that progress was real, not imagined. Each time I succeeded despite fear, I strengthened my belief in my own capability. Another key strategy was taking action even when I felt uncertain. I discovered that doubt loses power when confronted with deliberate effort. That motion breeds confidence more effectively than reassurance alone. I sought feedback from trusted mentors, and their perspective often confirmed my skills and growth, which balanced the internal voice of doubt. Over time, I noticed a shift. Self-doubt didn't disappear, but it no longer controlled my decisions. It became a quiet advisor rather than a tyrant, guiding me to prepare better or consider risks. Instead of avoiding challenges because of fear, I faced them with cautious confidence, realizing that my inner critic could coexist with my ambition without stopping me. This process of confronting self-doubt became a form of inner strength, a mental resilience that fueled every subsequent step on my path to success, and I began to see that courage is not the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. Embracing continuous learning. As I gained more confidence and experience, I realized that success is not a destination but an ongoing journey. The world moves quickly, knowledge evolves, and yesterday's skills can become outdated if I stopped learning. I committed myself to continuous growth, reading books, attending workshops, taking online courses, and seeking experiences that challenged me. Each new piece of knowledge expanded my perspective, revealing opportunities one hadn't noticed before, and solutions to problems that had seemed impossible. I also learned to learn from mistakes, not only my own but those of others, analyzing failures for patterns, understanding underlying causes, and adjusting strategies accordingly. This habit of deliberate learning built adaptability, which became essential as my responsibilities increased and challenges became more complex. I surrounded myself with people who inspired me intellectually, whose curiosity and insights pushed me to think differently. Their questions and ideas often opened doors to new approaches, while my mentors guided me on applying knowledge wisely. Another crucial lesson was humility, understanding that no matter how much I learned, there was always more to grasp. This mindset prevented complacency and kept my ambition grounded in realistic effort. As I invested in learning consistently, I noticed a compounding effect. Small improvements accumulated, and my ability to solve complex problems grew. I became more resourceful, confident in decision-making, and capable of navigating uncertainty. Continuous learning also fueled creativity, enabling me to innovate, adapt, and identify opportunities before others. It became clear that education does not stop after formal schooling, and the willingness to learn relentlessly separates those who plateau from those who continue ascending. By embracing this philosophy, I turned curiosity into a tool, challenges into lessons, and knowledge into leverage, solidifying the foundation for the success I was building. And it gave me a sense of purpose that went beyond recognition or wealth, connecting my efforts to meaningful growth and capability. Taking calculated risks. By the time I had developed discipline, patience, and a habit of continuous learning, I understood that growth required stepping into uncertainty. Success rarely comes to those who only follow safe paths, and I knew that to achieve meaningful progress, I had to take calculated risks. At first, risk felt intimidating. I worried about loss, embarrassment, and failure, but I learned to evaluate decisions carefully, weighing potential rewards against possible downsides. I studied examples of people who had succeeded through bold action and noted the strategies they used to mitigate danger. I began experimenting with risk in small, controlled ways, testing new ideas, pitching projects, and investing time in unfamiliar areas. Each time I embraced uncertainty, I learned something new, even if the outcome was not immediately positive. I discovered that fear often exaggerates the dangers while underestimating potential gains. Over time, I became more comfortable with discomfort, recognizing it as a signal that I was stretching beyond my current limits. I also developed a mental framework for risk, preparing contingency plans, identifying key variables, and setting boundaries to protect myself from catastrophic loss. This allowed me to act boldly without recklessness, balancing courage with strategy. I noticed that opportunities often appear where others hesitate, and by taking informed action while others waited, I could gain advantage. I also learned to trust my instincts, refined by experience and study. Intuition became a guide alongside analysis. Risk-taking became a tool for accelerated growth, a way to discover potential I might never reach on predictable paths. Each successful risk boosted confidence, and each failed attempt provided lessons that could not be learned in safety. Through this process, I realized that calculated risk is not gambling. It is the conscious choice to move forward in the face of uncertainty, and embracing it consistently became a defining factor in the journey toward success. Developing resilience. As I continued taking risks and pursuing growth, I realized that resilience was becoming my most important asset. Success is rarely a straight line, and setbacks became inevitable. From failed projects to missed opportunities, criticism from peers, or unexpected personal challenges. At first, these obstacles felt devastating, threatening to undo months of effort. But I learned that resilience is not about avoiding difficulties, it is about recovering from them stronger. I started to view setbacks as temporary and instructive rather than permanent and shameful. I developed habits that strengthened my mental and emotional endurance, journaling to process experiences, reflecting on lessons learned, and practicing mindfulness to maintain clarity under stress. I also cultivated physical habits, like exercise and proper rest, recognizing that a strong body supports a resilient mind. Mentors and peers helped me see perspective, reminding me that obstacles are part of every meaningful journey, not signs of personal failure. Each time I faced adversity and continued forward, I built confidence in my ability to withstand future challenges. I also learned to manage emotions, controlling frustration, anxiety, or discouragement instead of letting them dictate decisions. Over time, resilience became almost automatic. I no longer feared challenges because I knew I had overcome similar or worse situations before. This mindset enabled me to tackle bigger projects, embrace more complex opportunities, and act decisively under pressure. I understood that resilience multiplies the value of all other skills, turning discipline, knowledge, and risk-taking into sustainable growth. It transformed failure into feedback, obstacles into stepping stones, and doubt into motivation. With resilience, I could weather storms that would stop others, and I realized that this inner strength was a cornerstone of lasting success, far beyond external achievements or recognition. Mastering time and focus. As my skills, resilience, and experience grew, I realized that time was my most precious resource. Every minute spent unfocused, distracted, or on low-value activities delayed progress. I began experimenting with methods to manage my time more effectively. I learned to prioritize tasks based on impact rather than urgency, to distinguish between what truly mattered and what only felt pressing. I implemented routines that minimized decision fatigue, batching similar tasks together, setting specific blocks for deep work, and eliminating distractions. Social media, unnecessary meetings, and mindless scrolling became carefully controlled, and I noticed that reclaiming these hours created space for meaningful work. Focus, I discovered, is like a muscle. It strengthens with consistent training and weakens when neglected. I practiced sustained attention on challenging projects, gradually increasing the length and intensity of productive periods. I also learned the importance of rest and recovery, realizing that exhaustion undermines focus and diminishes the quality of effort. Scheduling breaks, exercise, and leisure was as important as the work itself. To maintain clarity, I reviewed goals regularly, breaking them into actionable steps and tracking progress, which reduced overwhelm and increased motivation. Delegation also became essential, learning to trust capable people with tasks that did not require my unique skills, allowing me to concentrate on high-impact areas. This combination of discipline, time management, and deep focus multiplied my effectiveness, making it possible to achieve more in a day than I previously thought possible in a week. With each passing month, I could see tangible results, projects completed faster, quality improving, opportunities handled proactively. I understood that mastering time and focus was not just about productivity, it was about freedom, the freedom to pursue ambitions without chaos, and the ability to consistently translate effort into visible success. Building a personal brand, as my work, skills, and visibility increased, I realized that success is not only about what you do but also how others perceive you. I began to focus on building a personal brand, a consistent image that reflected my values, expertise, and reliability. At first, the idea felt uncomfortable, as if I were promoting myself excessively, but I understood that communication and reputation are critical tools for creating opportunities. I started sharing insights, projects, and lessons learned publicly, through articles, social media, and presentations, aiming to provide value rather than seeking approval. Consistency was key. I maintained a professional, authentic presence across platforms, showing both achievements and the processes behind them. People began to recognize my work, not just for its outcome but for the integrity and dedication behind it. I also nurtured relationships with peers, collaborators, and mentors, as a personal brand is reinforced by the respect and trust of others. Over time, my visibility attracted new opportunities, speaking engagements, collaborations, and invitations to projects I would never have accessed before. This visibility did not guarantee success, but it amplified the impact of my work and opened doors faster than effort alone. I carefully balanced transparency with discretion, sharing enough to demonstrate expertise and reliability while keeping strategic plans private. Building a personal brand also taught me to own my story, to articulate challenges and growth in a way that inspired trust and connection. I learned to highlight strengths without arrogance, to be relatable yet authoritative. The process reinforced an important truth: consistent action combined with authentic presentation creates credibility, influence, and opportunity, which ultimately accelerate progress toward meaningful success. My reputation became a tool, one that reflected both my capability and my values, and that tool multiplied the effect of every skill and habit I had developed along the journey. Leveraging opportunities. As my visibility and personal brand grew, I realized that success is often about recognizing and acting on opportunities rather than waiting for them to come perfectly formed. Opportunities rarely appear as clear-cut choices. They are often disguised as challenges, invitations, or small tasks that could be ignored. I learned to evaluate each possibility quickly but thoughtfully, assessing potential benefits, risks, and alignment with long-term goals. I also learned the importance of preparation, because opportunities are only meaningful if you are ready to seize them. Developing skills, building networks, and cultivating resilience allowed me to act decisively when the right moment arrived. Sometimes this meant taking roles that felt slightly beyond my capacity, experimenting with unfamiliar projects, or collaborating with people I had not yet fully known. Each time I accepted a challenge, I expanded my capabilities and proved to myself that I could succeed. In areas I once doubted, I also learned to say no, because not every opportunity is valuable. Prioritizing the ones that align with my vision prevented dilution of effort and focus. Over time, I noticed a pattern: consistent effort, visibility, and readiness attracted better opportunities naturally. Doors opened not only because of my work but also because people trusted my reliability and competence. I embraced a mindset of proactivity, seeking opportunities actively rather than waiting for them, researching trends, connecting with potential collaborators, and identifying unmet needs where I could contribute. Every opportunity one leveraged, no matter how small initially, created momentum, building experience, credibility, and sometimes financial or strategic advantage. I realized that success is rarely about luck, it is about preparation meeting opportunity. And by consistently putting myself in positions to act, I could shape my own path rather than waiting passively for it to appear. This approach transformed how I viewed the world, turning uncertainty into possibility and potential into actionable steps toward meaningful achievement. Maintaining balance. As I progressed and opportunities multiplied, I faced a new challenge: maintaining balance. Early in my journey, I had poured all my energy into growth, discipline, and visibility, often neglecting personal health, relationships, and downtime. Over time, I realized that success achieved at the expense of well-being or meaningful connections is fragile, temporary, and unsatisfying. I began to structure my life intentionally, allocating time for work, rest, relationships, and reflection. This was not always easy. Urgency and ambition often tempted me to overcommit, but I learned that strategic boundaries preserve energy and focus. I also discovered the importance of mental and emotional care. Practices like meditation, journaling, and reflection helped me process stress and maintain clarity. Physical fitness, proper nutrition, and sufficient sleep became non-negotiable foundations that supported mental stamina and resilience. Maintaining balance also meant nurturing relationships with family, friends, and colleagues, investing in meaningful interactions, celebrating successes together, and seeking support when needed. I learned that a strong network of personal connections enriches both life and work, providing perspective, encouragement, and grounding. Over time, balance became a form of leverage. When I was healthy, rested, and emotionally centered, I could make better decisions, act decisively, and sustain effort without burnout. I also realized that balance is dynamic, not static, requiring constant adjustment as life circumstances and responsibilities evolve. By valuing balance as much as achievement, I protected the long-term sustainability of my efforts, ensuring that my pursuit of success did not come at the cost of my well-being or happiness. This principle became a quiet but powerful driver, allowing me to operate at a high level consistently while still enjoying life outside of work, and it reinforced the idea that true success integrates personal fulfillment with external accomplishment. Reflecting and paying it forward, reaching a point where I could see the fruits of my consistent effort, discipline, resilience, and strategic action, I realized that success is not just about achieving personal goals, but about the impact you create and the legacy you leave. I began reflecting on the journey, the failures that taught me humility, the risks that built courage, the mentors who guided me, and the countless hours of preparation that compounded into results. This reflection was not mere nostalgia, it was a tool for understanding what truly mattered and how I could continue to grow while helping others. I recognized that knowledge and experience have value only when shared, and mentoring others became a natural extension of my own growth. I started offering guidance, sharing lessons learned, supporting peers and newcomers in navigating challenges I had once faced. This act of paying it forward reinforced my own learning, deepened relationships, and created a ripple effect of growth and opportunity beyond myself. I also embraced gratitude, acknowledging the people, circumstances, and choices that shaped my path. Gratitude transformed my perspective, reminding me that success is rarely solitary and that appreciation fuels both humility and motivation. As I reflected, I identified new goals, not just for personal advancement, but for contribution, influence, and meaningful impact. I realized that true success combines achievement with purpose, discipline with compassion, and visibility with integrity. Each step I had taken, the failures endured, the risks embraced, the skills acquired, and the relationships nurtured prepared me to operate at a level where I could create real value, not just for myself but for others. Looking back, I understood that the journey itself is the core of success, the transformation of mindset, habits, and character that enables sustained accomplishment. And with this awareness, I approached the future not as a destination, but as a continuous path of growth, learning, and meaningful contribution, ready to embrace challenges, seize opportunities, and help others rise alongside me. Because true success is multiplied when it uplifts more than just the individual who achieves it.